So this is a recording that I made of a TikTok live from October 30th, 2024. In it, we're gonna cover parental alienation, some of the basics of divorce and custody, a lot of the mentality that you need to have, especially if you're a man, even though a lot of these questions were written in from women and they kind of work both ways. What do you need to do in order to win? What do you need to do to win in a system that is completely against you? Every single topic in here that we discuss is time-stamped in the description below. And after reviewing this, probably the things that I think are most important are the perspectives on parental alienation and the perspectives on if a mother is trying to take away the kids from you, the father, do you have the right to take away the kids from her? In addition to that, there's all sorts of other stuff. The Australian court system, child support being good or bad, or courtroom manipulation, and the general overall perspective, what do we need to do when we enter into a court system that does not work? How do we make it work for us? So check out the timestamps below to what you're interested in or watch the whole thing. I plan on doing a lot of these things, and please follow me on the different media platforms because there's a lot of video that goes to YouTube that doesn't go to TikTok and vice versa. And then I'm gonna start posting more on Instagram as well. And of course, if you're interested in my groups, check out the links down below to join it. They are 24/7 support. In fact, I have to leave right now and finish the edit of this probably in 4 or 5 hours because we're gonna have a meetup at my house in Austin, Texas, where a lot of the local guys meet. We do that weekly when I'm in town. Anyway, let's get started on this Q&A. Hey, we are live on TikTok and it is October 30th, 2024. This is kind of an interesting live that I want to do because I've gotten a lot of just questions within my group about how do we do this thing? How do we hire a lawyer? How do we get started in a custody battle? What do we do when custody basically is this Rubik's Cube of stuff? And part of the main information of this is that I want people to understand when it comes down to divorce and custody, there's a really, really, really specific route that we have, a route, a way that will make this a lot easier for men, women, and whoever are involved. And part of the problem with this is that when we're a man and we're going through a divorce or a custody battle, is that we have this idea that we automatically get screwed. And let me just make this clear, like, let's not be stupid about this. I'm so sick of arguments being trumped or put down or whatever just because we have these one-word quick answers. Of course, men get screwed in custody battles. Of course, women get screwed in custody battles. People get screwed all the time in custody battles. Part of that could be corruption. Part of it could be collusion from lawyers. Part of it could be that the court system's biased. But let me just tell you something, like anytime you go into having the state determine how your relationship to your kids is going to be, it is going to not be good. It's going to be screwed up. There's going to be compromises in all sorts of different ways. And so from this point on, when you move into a custody battle, you need to start understanding that everything is going to be unfair. So stop with the whole, like, I'm a victim and things are screwed and I can't do anything. Stop with all of that. Like, please stop all of that and start going, how can I win this thing? How can I get what's fair? It's been entered into the courts. I'm now seeking to win an argument with a judge. How do I do that? I'm starting to understand that it's the judge's opinion. It's the psychological battle. It's the psychological warfare in this. It's not just that, it's also going to be how much money you have that determines all of this. This is the playing field of it. And so if we can learn that our custody battle is about that, if we can learn that we have to win that game, we can stop with all this other stuff. Now, part of this is going to be that this is massively overwhelming, and overwhelming to a point that you're not going to be able to think straight. You're going to miscalculate things, you're going to misread things, you're going to get so much of everything wrong in this. And it should. That's not because you're a weak man, that's not because you're stupid, that's not because you didn't listen to the right red pill information on holding your frame. I just want to make this clear, like, as modern men and women in this world, are we that stupid that we think a courtroom argument with our kids, vows of marriage are just gone because we didn't have the right frame, that we were too much of a bitch, that we were too much of whatever? Like, don't get me wrong, like, men are weak in our society. and women are fucked up in our society, and men are fucked up in our society, and women are weak in our society. I absolutely agree with all of that. But your problem right now of being able to win your custody case, not get screwed over in divorce, has to do with following a specific road and a roadmap towards that. In any case, you can write in questions as you like as we go on in all of this. But what I want to start talking about are things like, how do we find the right lawyer? Do we need a lawyer? How do we determine what is the, when do we attack? When do we not? How do we take the high road? What is the high road in all of this? All these questions that go on and on. How do we deal with not being able to see our kids? How do we not lose our minds and just, kill somebody or whatever it is, and please don't do that. How do we do this, right? How do we do this? There's a question that is written in. I just wanted to share. I've been alienated from my 16-year-old son for 13 years. I was 100% erased. Man, I'm so sorry to hear. If you know my story, that happened to me as well, and I deal with guys all day long on the same issue. I don't want to make light of it because, and this is part of the reason why I dislike a lot of the advice out there, because it's not made for somebody who has been alienated from their child, like this person is saying. This past week, one of them has been poking around on my TikTok profile. Yeah, man, it's one of those things where it's so horrible, and it's for men and women, but anytime a child is taken away from a parent, here's what I've found from dealing with so much of this. There's so much that I want to say. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing. It is the closest thing to evil that I've experienced. And just so you guys know, like, one of the things that has been throughout my life is all sorts of crazy, bad stuff. And I've really had the human experience, we'll say. Addiction, and I'm not saying that lightly, like, man, a huge thing. I've been clean for 16 years or something like that, and work a pretty devout program around that and all those different things. But like, I know the absolute horrors of that. I've worked in addiction longer than I've worked in divorce and custody. I still work in it with people. I see a lot of people die. I get the horrors of that. It is a terrible thing. When it comes down to things like the worthlessness that people have in our culture, the general depression around all of that. I worked in many different rehabs and all these sorts of things. But what I want to get into with being alienated from your kids, why this is so evil, why this is so bad. When a parent is taken away from their child, that parent suffers a loss that you cannot comprehend if you haven't experienced it. Like for real, you have suffered a pain that you could not even know existed. And you would do anything for that. You would do anything to get it back. Your purpose is gone, your life is gone. And in addition to that, in most cases, you're then being attacked from the other side, which everybody's believing, or even your friends who don't believe that other side, they just want to stay out of it, to not get involved, right? Which, it sounds healthy, it sounds right. I don't think they should get involved in by doing some horrible act towards somebody else, but you need support. You need support, and nobody's supporting you. This is what guys in my group find when they get taken away from their kids. But then here's the real evil of that. So that, that's the evil part. It's so bad. But the real evil comes in when you see what damage was done to those kids. When you see that those kids' lives are affected. And it's not just that they missed 13 years with their kids, as the person who wrote in on this TikTok live. It's that their whole brain changed. That all of that changed. That all of their decisions, their choices, in dealing with addiction and dealing with people with addiction. Like, this will make it much more probable that they will have thoughts of suicide, thoughts of depression, addiction, homelessness, all sorts of different personality disorders, because one parent took it upon themselves to play this evil, sadistic, sick game of taking a parent away from another parent. That is so screwed up. And here's the worst part about this, is when this is all happening, in the heat of the moment, when the false claims are being made, when the taking away of a child is being made. When that is happening, everybody seems to go around the person who's saying that they're the victim in this. Everybody's going, they're supporting them because they need support. They were being abused, and they're doing the right thing as a parent. And when it gets exposed that they lied, when it gets exposed that maybe they went too far. Because oftentimes they'll make a false claim, the kids will get taken away, and then 6 months down the road, they'll do something else which is just deplorable. And then people can see, well, wait a minute, maybe so-and-so is not the best parent. Oh, but they have it hard. They have it hard. They're without the other parent because the other parent was this abuser. They're the victim. And then more things will happen and people will start to realize like, oh, wait, maybe this person is not the best parent. Nobody cares. When the lie is exposed that one parent alienated another parent from their kids and those kids will be permanently scarred, nobody cares. Nobody sees that as abuse. Nobody sees that as a problem. Nobody sees that as anything that should be reacted upon. When that in itself is causing the same amount of damage is beating your children. And not just beating them, but beating them to the point where they're afraid and wanting things to stop and being confused and not having any sense of having a child's innocence anymore. So the parent that lies, the parent that takes away from a kid, almost never has a consequence for doing something that is causing the same amount of abuse, is hitting your child to the point where they're in pain and in fear and confusion. The same thing goes for sex abuse. It is, I don't want to say equivalent because different forms of abuse get different things, but when you look at parental alienation, when that truly happens, and a child who's been abused sexually, and a lot of times there's a false claim of sex abuse, but when that happens, the results are so similar. They're bad, they're horrible. And that's why I think this is such an evil thing. Parental alienation is such an evil thing in the courts. They don't care. They don't care. I'm gonna get caught up in some of these messages. Haven't seen my kid in 28 days, currently fighting a TPO. Man, let me just tell you, if you're fighting a temporary protective order and you haven't seen your kids for 28 days, if you want to not turn that into 2 years, you need to you need to put your nose in the books of the law. You need to start understanding it. You need to stop going like, okay, it's a corrupt system, it's totally fucked. Absolutely, it is for you. You're seeing that it's a corrupt system and there's problems. So you need to start learning that system. You need to start learning how the courts work, how motions are filed, how do you present yourself in front of the judge. I would highly recommend you hire a lawyer. If you don't, in temporary protective orders, they're so confusing. It's very, very important to be able to understand and navigate what's going on in them. It's just so freaking important. So you got to get started. I would highly recommend looking at my groups. We're pretty much at the max level right now in my groups. I only allow a certain number of people to be in the Rising Man at one time. And I got to check what the stats are today, but look into it. If you can sign up and there's opportunities to be able to sign up, I would really look at it because it'll save your butt. And there's a bunch of guys in the group who are going through that same exact thing that will tell you what you need to do. Okay, let's go on to some other questions here. My ex-husband says, oh, okay, this is part of that question, says that he will do something bad if I file for child support. File for child support. Look, child support is a way where men talk about getting screwed all the time. Okay, and in different states, it's really bad. Like in New York State, it is horrific what guys go through, and women or whoever gets served on child support. It is a terrible state for that. But file for it. Like stop. The more that we have, so the courts and the laws are screwed up. But if we're so screwed up that we're asking them for help, like we file for divorce and custody, all those different things, we need order to bring us back to order. Now, those courts are screwed up. So you need to learn the order of the courts in order to get it, okay? So when people move into this thing of saying like, man, I just want you to not do this and that for this and that reason, or I'm gonna harm myself or whatever. No. Stop the manipulation, the screwed up, emotional, sick manipulation that got us here in the first place. That's a bigger problem here. Like when guys are talking about that you have to be more alpha and controlled, yeah, okay, do it. So do some real things with your life which make you a better person. But crying when your kids are gone, or being upset and being emotionally out of whack when you can't see your children is not a bad thing. that means you loved your kids. That's not like a lack of alphaness. So this whole manosphere crap, which nobody has any help on divorce and custody. I mean, one of the biggest problems that they cite, they don't have help on. They only have help on money, sex, power, and basically how to lie to a culture that you're better than everybody so you don't feel bad. Like, that's the solution. Like it's ridiculous, right? So when we get into this, if we're out of order, we need order. You should not feel bad about paying child support. You should feel bad about the corruption around child support. So here's how guys get screwed on child support. One, they're in the wrong state. Look, New York is screwed up. California can be screwed up. There's a lot of states which are really screwed up on it. As one of the guys in my calls says, child support is the best, the cheapest, most affordable daycare you can find because, well, it depends on your parenting plan, but oftentimes if you're paying child support, you're not responsible for daycare or school supplies. Some parenting plans are different. But this is why you have to understand the law. You have to understand that in you paying child support, that should mean that you're not paying other things. In you paying for medical should mean you're not paying for other things. In that parenting plan, if it says that you pay for school supplies, medical, dental, and you're paying for all of it, this should then be factored into how you argue your child support. And child support is all math, right? But you need to understand how it is so you don't walk into the courtroom completely screwed. In any case, sorry, I got a little bit carried away with that one. Okay, just saw them 3 weeks ago for the first time in 13 years. Geez, man, that is rough. That is rough. Okay. They say men look bad. That's the Australian government. So let me tell you this. If you're in Australia, we have a couple guys who've been in the group that have been in Australia fighting their cases. One of the things that is so crazy with Australia. So one of the guys had a bunch of false claims be put against him. And in those false claims, they were able to beat the case and they got custody of their kids, but it was a nightmare, okay? One of the other great clients that we have is going through the Australian court system right now, same area in Perth, and it is horrible. And both of those guys, they're friends, they talk and all that sort of stuff, but in defending these false claims, it's nuts. It's like one step forward. I'd have to get into the details of it, and so here's one of the things with Australia and Canada and England and all over Europe, because we have guys who are in our groups that have that, is that the language is different. You know, the different ways of filing things are different. The concept is generally the same, but then the little details, those little details, man, I highly recommend talking to people who understand the law in those areas, because that's where it gets really screwed up. So in our groups, we offer different support. We offer different, like, you know, looking through the case, helping to organize evidence, how to generally work the case through. But man, in Australia, it's crazy. The guy who got custody of his kids, it was not easy. It took over a year, and he didn't get to see his kids for a long period of time of that. It was just totally screwed up. And I know guys in the US have the same thing, but it's just so screwed up. How did this effed up cancer enter into Western culture so bad? But it's seen all over consistently. The red mole himself. All right, man, if you know that, you are old school. Thank you. And send me a DM. Send me a DM on Instagram, because I cannot. Man, I cannot. All the messages I get on TikTok are too crazy. Like, I won't see it, man. I get like 100 messages a day. It's like ridiculous. And the best way for me to help you if you are going through a divorce and custody thing is that you should get into my groups, man. I keep them affordable, and we're actually going to do a price change that makes things easier for people. The starting out price will be the same, but the longer you stay in, the cheaper it will get. Spouse of a father who has full custody of his kids. The bio mom, our case was toxic and the abuser. All right, well, good for you, man. Good for you. And one of the things that goes both ways, this is an interesting thing that happens within our groups. So fathers will win custody, and I don't want to make it like it's a slam dunk. You join our group and you win custody. If you do anything with the court systems, you're going to have to work your ass off, and you're going to have to work your ass off super hard. So if you do anything with custody, you need to understand that you need to be ready to work on everything. To the fathers, though, that win and get custody of their kids, in our groups, it's so heavily encouraged, especially because we have so many dads who've gotten protective orders against them, is to not do the same thing to mothers. And this is important. Like, just because men are screwed by our society, our culture, the court system, in all the different ways that men are screwed, and they're being screwed by the woman who's trying to take away custody of their own kids, it is a big thing in our groups because so many dads have lost custody. They haven't seen their kids for many years, and they're fighting. Even they could reverse protective orders, and they're still fighting to see their kids because the system is so out of whack. It is absolutely encouraged in the culture of our groups to not take away mothers from children, even though those mothers tried to take away the custody from the men. It's super important. And part of the reason for that is you just see the real-time pain of what it causes the other parent, in our case, the father who's been alienated, but also you see the pain it causes the kids. And so to the dads that have gotten full custody, keep that in mind. Like, keep the mothers in their lives. You don't want your children to have that problem. You can't replace it. This is one of the biggest problems with feminism that somehow men think doesn't apply to them. When you make men expendable, it ruins our culture. It ruins the kids you raise. But when you make women expendable, it does the same thing. And so we can't do that as fathers. This is just such a massive thing. When we enter into the whole picture, when we actually see, when we don't just have manosphere people talk about the concept of masculinity, but when you actually have men working with men who've had their children taken away by mothers because they were seen as expendable, and you see men do that back to women and make women expendable, it ruins a culture. It ruins your kids' lives. So you don't want to do that. It's so, so important. Very, very important. Guys, I have to do an interview right now, so I'm going to shut this one down. For the last couple of years, I have not been posting, or last couple of days, I'm sorry, I've not been posting many videos, but I'll get back on that. And I really want to start getting videos out there on, like, how do we make this custody thing work? How do we do it? How do we go to the courthouse? How do we, submit the right paperwork? If we don't submit it, what is going to happen? How could things go wrong? How do we address judges? How do we do depositions? How do we file things? All those different things. Because I think when we can learn that, we can learn to prevent so many mistakes that parents run into when they're in this divorce and custody thing. Nobody prepares us for it. And the only school we have is for women, extreme feminism, which screws everything up. And for men, this idiotic manosphere stuff of just like men are screwed and we have to step up and be warriors. Step up and be a warrior. Learn the court system. Learn how to get your kids back. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon. If you made it through the whole thing, give it a like, subscribe, comment, all that sort of good stuff. And if you're interested in more, check the links down below on the different resources that we offer to help men in the tragedies they face in this modern world. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon.